All right, so in case you're wondering what you're looking at here, this is me transferring a VHS tape, actually, of our producer, Emily, when she used to do hockey for Rogers. Now, for those of our American viewers that don't know who Rogers is, they are now the largest broadcaster of sports in Canada, and Emily used to work for them. And what I'm actually taping now is some of the very first television work she did back in 1996, and this is actually some old VHS footage taken from the broadcast masters of OHL games. So basically, AHL, CHL. And so this tape is pushing 30 years old at this point. It's kind of scary. So back in the day, before everything was tapeless, and there were actually physical tapes. And I actually had to do some stuff to this tape. This is sort of my little workshop here, which is where I usually tend to do my live streams from home when I'm not at the studio. And this tape here actually was kind of crinkled. I put it in a VHS deck, and the deck kind of ate the tape. And so I basically had to physically take the tape, open it up, fix the part that was crinkled, and then kind of get everything aligned and then realign it. And the reason that I have the VHS, my tape deck open, is because I actually kept having the tape snag, so it took me a while to kind of get everything working the way I wanted it to. So instead of having to keep opening up the damn tape deck, I just figured I would just leave it open. So if it were snagged, then I could just kind of turn it off, unplug it so I didn't electrocute myself, and then just kind of get everything out from the drum. So I thought this might be sort of an interesting way to sort of show how a VHS tape works. Now, for those of you that really want to nerd out, there's plenty of stuff on YouTube that kind of shows how it works and helical scan and all that kind of jazz. But in the days before television, and yes, I am that old here, people. I don't look it, but I am. And basically what you're looking at here, so if you look carefully, you can see kind of the way the tape, I don't know if you can see this here, because I'm actually doing this with my cell phone. So what happens is this little, if you've ever seen a VHS tape, if you're old enough, you remember, but if not. So basically when you push the tape in the deck, there's a little mechanism. And then what happens is there's a door at the top, like a hatch, and then it opens up. And then the tape actually comes out. And then what happens is so you can see, I'm going to try to put my finger there. So if you follow my finger, so what's happening is that tape, let's see if I can get in a little closer here. So the tape is actually coming out there. It's hard to see because there's not a lot of contrast. And the tape is actually pulled out, and then it's going through this mechanism, and then it's actually being turned around in this drum. So it's caught by this drum, and then what happens is that tape, so it's going around this drum, and then it's actually pulling that tape, and the tape is actually traveling to this capstan here. And you can see that the tape is actually just in between. You can see it actually physically coming out of the red VHS tape. So the tape is actually being pulled out. It's being controlled and kind of pulled out, and it's rolling through, and it's being clamped by the capstan. And then the tape is kind of traveling through, and then it's going up here, and then it's basically being pulled around this drum. And then there's a head, and then it's being read, and then that's actually what's taking the signal and bringing it to the playback device. Now, obviously, we don't use old school CRT TVs anymore, so I actually have to use a box. So what I've done is I have an old school, I have some RCA cables here, like so. So my yellow is actually my analog video feed, and then my left and right audio channels, because it's in stereo, are the red and white. And then what I do have here is it's actually going to this box. So this is sort of cheap Chinese box that I have here, and then it's actually converting. Well, the box is converting the signal to an HD. So it's actually the analog feed is going into the box, and then it's converting that, and then I have I actually have an HDMI cable, and then it's going out to the deck. So it's actually working pretty well. The quality is surprisingly good. Not too shabby considering that. Not too shabby considering, this is a pretty old deck. It's a pretty old deck and pretty old tape. So I've been meaning to do this for a while because it's a shame to see sort of historical stuff sort of go to waste here. And when I started in television, this is also how we did it. So we shot on analog tape. So when I started and I worked I was working at CJOH in Ottawa. And at the time it was at 1500 Merivale Road, Ottawa, Canada, not Ottawa, Illinois. Although Ottawa, Illinois is a beautiful place. And we were actually shooting on what was then Betacam SP tape. And then before that, we were shooting on 3/4 inch U-matic and 1 inch U-matic. So, it was all physical tape, and then we had a switcher, and then everything would kind of go into the switcher, a big giant analog switchers, either in the truck or in the studio, and that's how we did our television programming. And every single thing that you saw on TV had a box. So when we did graphics, Chiron, we actually had a physical box, a rack mount box that was connected to a piece of hardware that was physically connected into the switcher via BNC connectors. And we do all this digitally now, of course, but at the time, it was all done digitally. At the time it was all done analog with cables. I mean, we still have cables. I mean, that part hasn't changed. But, the quality of footage and the quality of a lot of the stuff that we have now is so much better. I mean, it's a little hard to see from here, but, I mean, this is a VHS tape, right? So, obviously it would be a little higher quality, the original broadcast quality tape. Maybe double the resolution a little bit. But again, you can see little fuzzies, and you can see little scan lines, and you can see a number of imperfections, right? Because the resolution just isn't there, right? I mean, it's to save the bandwidth on the tape. But it's interesting to kind of go through this stuff, 30 years later and just take a look at it. And we're in the process of digitizing all of our stuff at Skychron here right now. So there's all these tapes and things and commercials and that sort of thing that is in storage, and we haven't touched in years. And, analog stuff does not last forever. Tapes do not last forever. They are very hardy, but they don't last forever. You have to archive them and digitize them and do stuff before it's too late. So it's a good idea, kids, to take care of your stuff. And these are actually the sorts of this is just an old case from another production company. They don't exist anymore. But we used to actually store our broadcast tapes in this. This would be like a submaster, of an industrial of some kind. West Tank Willock, the Maxi Dolly. This was just a scratch tape that I got. This wasn't one of ours, but scratch tapes are good. But, I have kind of a mix of old and new in here. I mean, and again, the more things sort of change, the more things stay the same. I mean, it's my Prophet 5. Hasn't changed since 1977. This was given to me by Sequential. And then even at home, I can do a lot of my work at home, which you could not do before. So when I do music and stuff for Go Nitro, a lot of the time I'll do it at home. I won't do it at the studio. So I have so it's kind of, I guess, turning into a bit of an impromptu, a little bit of an impromptu sort of setup here. So here's my, here's what I record a lot of my music on. Because sometimes I don't feel like using the computer. Sometimes I just want to record and be done with it. So I do have my big computer over there, and I have my tablet and everything, and I have my it's a little bit of a mess. I'm sort of building some stuff here, and I'm also building a recording booth in the corner here. But yeah, so I mean, here's my main computer that I use when I work from home. So I have my 2 monitors on my tablet, and then I have my little workbench desk there that I use to kind of fix things. And then I have, and then you've seen some of this from my live stream, and I need to kind of get rid of those ugly, ugly curtains from the 1970s. And then for the music, I have a controller, which I guess I'm using as a bench. So I have a Korg controller there, and then I have my Prophet 5 here, and then I record it on my Tascam. I have a DP32. I got it used actually from a guy in Medicine Hat, Alberta. That was an interesting trip. And then I got it for like just because you have a budget doesn't mean you need to spend more than you have to. So I'm cheap. So, and then I have my mixer here. This is an old mixer. This is a mixer from, I guess, the late 90s, early 2000s. This is my Mackie 32. Relatively quiet mixer. I mean, for live streaming and recording for broadcast, it's more than fine. So I have all my stuff and everything. Perfectly good mixer. Nothing wrong with it. And then I've got, like I have plenty of channels. I have plenty to work with here. And then I have everything nice and labeled. So I have, my piano and all that. So the Prophet 5 is mono, right? So it only actually uses one slider. And then I have stuff that comes from my PC if I want to route it somewhere analog. So I have it there. And then I have piano, which is the Korg. And then I have a mic over here on my slider here on my mixer. And then I have my transmitter here. And then I have just, if I need to open something up and just kind of fix something or adjust something, I can do that. And then I have my shelf, and I have some vintage stuff on the shelf and some various awards that I got. One from the mayor of the city of Ottawa, and I'm actually working on some stuff in this room actually, but yeah, so that's kind of what I've got going on in here, and then just some press clippings. And then I have my retro shelf. I have my Street Fighter 2 and my Mortal Kombat little arcade machine and Galaxian and all that. So then I have some WD-40, which is kind of required if you have electronics. So that's my little workshop, my little room that I do my live streaming in. But yeah, so that's basically how we do it. So again, just 30-year-old tape and 30-year-old tape and 30-year-old footage. And so you've got an interesting kind of hybrid between these two.